Okay, so stop me if you've heard this one before. A powerful man who built his empire through the hard and risky work of other men finds out that the source of his wealth is killing people, but resists change for fear that he may lose all his money. That doesn't sound very realistic, right? Right off the bat, we meet the Holloways, Andrew and his daughter Elaine. It's right before Elaine's engagement party, celebrating her upcoming marriage to Superintendent Gil Fenton. Gil arrives with Adam, his best man. The Cartwrights have come a long way from a Rose for Lotta, and they're now supplying timber to all of the mines. If you'd have told Ben back in Rose for Lotta that they'd be doing that, I think he probably would have thrown you off his ranch. Then again, he threw everybody off his ranch back then, so it doesn't really mean anything. The party is ended before it can even begin when the mine alarm is sounded. Adam goes in with Gil, and they discover that no one who had been down there is alive anymore. Some of the other men act as though Gil is a different person now, that he has a position higher up and is engaged to the owner's daughter. This reminds me of something that we'll see later on in the series in the episode Flannelmouth Gun. In that episode, small cattle ranchers treat Adam like he's only looking out for himself and the other big cattle spreads. But we'll get to that one later. Back to this episode, though. We find out that it's customary to give all the widows of mining accidents a box of groceries. That tells you how often it happens that they have protocol for how to handle the widows. Gil shows us why he and the Cartwrights are such good friends as he stands up to his boss and he worries about his men. We find out that he told Holloway before that it wasn't safe, but Holloway didn't listen. Gil is made to face the group of women waiting to hear the fate of their men. Elaine seems to try and comfort them as much as she can, and it's obvious that she feels for them. Holloway wants a report and cares nothing for the loss of life. He goes so far as to tell Adam to stay out of the mine. I like to imagine that he's just a little worried about what Big Papa Ponderosa would have had to say if Adam were to meet some ill fate down in an unsafe mine. Unfortunately, neither Ben nor Joe is in this one, so I guess we'll never know. Back in the house, Andrew invites his daughter to sit with him, and he parks her on the floor while he gets the comfy chair? Dad burn, this guy really is the big bad of the episode, isn't he? The following morning, Gil meets Adam and Hoss in the saloon/restaurant, whereupon Hoss gets stuck paying for the meal. I guess that makes sense because he did eat more than everybody else. It's only fair, right? Outside, they run into a man named Tregallis, one of the miners who previously accused Gil of being too haughty now. He lost a brother in the previous disaster, but has gone back to being a Holloway simp, and is willing to go right back in the mine whenever they tell him to. Gil and the Cartwright boys talk about the man who was hired to try and solve the timber issue, a Dutchman named Philip Diedesheimer. As Gil and Adam are giving Philip a tour of the death trap, Gil brags on how great Adam is, like they've been besties forever, and I'm totally here for it. Adam even seems to blush a little. He gets himself a sounding board job right off the cuff. Of course, this is a fandom, and fandoms don't let you love minor characters for too long. This is episodic television, babes. We can't let you love someone you'll never hear about again. That would just be crazy. Right? Another accident happens, and this time Adam, Philip, and Gil are trapped. The other men, led by Tregallis, attempt to make contact with the trapped men. Meanwhile, Hoss heard about what happened, and he says he's going down there no matter what orders there are not to let him in. My brother's down there. A line delivered in a way that only Hoss can. By the time he gets there, the other men have given up. Hoss proceeds to dig all by himself until he finds Adam and Philip. He has to explain to Adam that Gil didn't make it before having to do the same thing with Elaine. Mala Powers does an absolutely amazing job and steals the scene every time she's in one. Charles Cooper as Gil is perfectly cast as well. Adam tries to tell Holloway that Gil is dead, but he chokes on the words. Elaine picks it up for him, and it reduces me to tears. Once everyone but Hoss has left the room, Holloway says aloud that he needs to replace Gil as superintendent, and Hoss is just disgusted. He quickly fires a man named Casey who refuses to go back down and gives the job to Tregallis. Meanwhile, the Dutchman and his soundboard are already getting back to work. The spineless Tregallis is sent to try and tell Philip he's no longer wanted. They ignore him until Phil knocks him in the jaw and promptly goes back to work. What a legend. Haas and Elaine share a beautiful scene where Haas elegantly describes grief in a way that could serve to speak to the heart of anyone going through it. He talks about remembering his mama kissing his fingers when he got hurt. I'm going to assume for Laura's sake that he means Marie, because Inger died when Haas was a baby. They might not have made that decision yet at this point in the show, but that's just how I interpret it based on eventually established canon. He then talks about being in love once with a woman who died. Again, I'm assuming we're talking about Emily from a few episodes earlier. I'm glad they kept it in, because half the time we never hear about any of their loves again after the credits roll. Dragalis lets Mr. D into the mine this time. He's a total wimp. Mr. D is talking about his brain being a honeycomb with Haas when the idea comes to him, and thus the Diedesheimer system of timber is born. They show Holloway a model of it, and Hulk businessman smash. Elaine tells him off once and for all and leaves him. The boys don't have any better luck when they gather the other miners together. The men see nothing but dollar signs and don't believe him when he says he has no intention of charging them. Haas speaks up to defend Adam, and I'm clapping so loud. They leave somewhat defeated until Adam gets the idea of handing it over to the sawmill they own under the supervision of Joe, who they plan to tell that it's impossible to do all in one night. Which, I mean, yeah, I don't know how he's going to do it either. They must give him a big bottle of Monster and bet him some money. So the new plan is to build on Holloway's mine without telling him. When Haas tells Elaine, she notices how proud he is of his family. She also worries that the miners will take clubs to them. We see that she's right about that when they're met by a mob. But one thing no one counted on was that Holloway was down there already, and by morning he's overseeing the honeycombs being put into his mine. He did a complete 180 off screen, and I'm assuming it's because his daughter was so angry with him. I do kind of wish we would have gotten to see more of that, though I get why they did the twist. But it would have been interesting to see his character progression in that way, because he goes from complete black hat to being one of the heroes of the end. We don't really get to see what happens in the meantime. A test is done and is a success, and the Dutchman celebrates with a stash of booze. He had a bottle of booze stashed in the mine, like you do. The other miners still refuse to use it, for now. This episode is another historical one, and Philip Diedesheimer was a real mining engineer, born in Germany, who invented a new system of timbering to save lives by preventing mining accidents. He died in California in 1916. It only took him 6 weeks to develop his honeycomb. This is another great one with a strong cast of guest stars. R.J. Armstrong is in many other episodes and does very well as both the selfish mine owner and also a father who finally learns his lesson. John Beale as Philip does a great job too. The way they put a spotlight on Adam and Haas's relationship is fantastic. Haas does everything to save Adam's life, and then does everything to defend Adam's integrity when the other miners tried to shoot down his ideas. I know that Ben and Joe could have added something to the episode, because they always do. That being said, I like that we got one with just Adam and Haas to let us really see how much they love each other. Dan and Purnell had great chemistry, and I've read that out of everyone, it was Dan that Purnell developed a friendship with outside of the show. Fun fact, this episode aired on Mike's birthday. Maybe that's why he wasn't there. If you're an avid Joe gal, you might have previously skipped this one. I would say that it's still worth watching, though. There's strong characters, great family and friendship scenes, and you can learn about a historical person and event in a way that's a lot more fun than how you might have learned it in school. This one has it all.